All right, so picking right back up with hypersensitivities here. So immediate allergies, you're going to notice right away. Okay. Subacute, an example of this is delayed a little bit more. You might not notice it immediately, but it will happen within like 1 to 3 days, and it doesn't last. It's not prolonged for a super long time. A great example of this is mismatched blood transfusions. This is where your body has antibodies against something else, somebody else's blood type. Okay, you are O and you get B, for example. It's considered a subacute hypersensitivity. Your body's going to attack it. And then a delayed hypersensitivity would be something like being in contact with something that you have a skin allergic reaction to, called contact dermatitis. Poison ivy is an example of this. If you are allergic to nickel in jewelry or some cosmetics, this ends up being a delayed allergic reaction. You might wear some jewelry one day, be fine, and then after 2-3 days, maybe you notice a rash has developed. Same with poison ivy. You go on a hike, you're fine, you don't notice the poison ivy, but then 2 days later, you develop a rash on your legs that's super itchy and painful. Contact dermatitis, a delayed hypersensitivity. When you got your TB tests were a delayed type of hypersensitivity. If you've had TB before and you have antibodies in your body for it, you would have reacted when they put a little bit of tuberculosis on your skin. And so they took like a little bit, put it right underneath your skin on your forearm. And if you develop a rash that's really large, delayed, this is why they had to come back 2 days later, at least 48 hours later, in order to see if you had it. That would be an indication you had antibodies for tuberculosis. And then, but if it came back negative, you were fine to go do your job shadows. Now, the other type of hypersensitivity that people always like to talk about is gluten. All right. So there's different types of sensitivities to gluten. The most severe one is celiacs disease. If you have celiacs disease and you come in contact with gluten, your body attacks your own intestines. The picture on here shows you a normal intestinal wall with the microvilli versus someone with celiacs disease. If they come in contact with wheat or gluten, their body, their immune system attacks your microvilli and kind of mows them down. It causes all kinds of problems with absorption of any kind of food later on. And so that's an autoimmune disorder, celiac disease. You can test for it. A wheat allergy would be like the other kind of allergy attacks. If you ingested something you were allergic to. This also applies to peanuts, not just wheat. You might get a swollen tongue, severe abdominal pain, crazy cramping because inflammation, everything is going to that area and closing things off. You could have anaphylactic shock from this, and you would have antibodies to fight off if it was wheat or peanuts, and so they can test for that as well. Now, peanut allergies in the air, it might come in contact with the skin and you might get a rash, but you shouldn't have anaphylactic shock from peanuts in the air. But to ingest a peanut could cause death. Okay. Now, gluten sensitivities versus gluten intolerance. I have both of these in red because they are not well diagnosed by the medical community. I shouldn't say diagnosed. They're not defined. There's no test for them. So if a doctor tests you for celiacs and wheat and you are not allergic or that way, then they'll put you on a restrictive diet and see, okay, what can or can't you eat? If you have milder symptoms, they call it a sensitivity. Just avoid those things, don't eat them so you don't have the bloating and other uncomfortableness. Or gluten intolerance, maybe your reaction's a little bit more severe, could get headaches, things like that. But again, it's not an allergy. It's not going to kill you. Okay. Last little thing, throw back to a previous unit we talked about, but primary immune response and secondary immune response. This is on your homework assignment. I just wanted to remind you that after being sick and getting exposed to something, it takes your body a while to create antibodies and fight it off. But the second time you come in contact with it, your antibodies skyrocket up and you end